To save his life, the man hurried into the women's restroom, but just as he was about to escape through the window, he discovered it had been sealed shut, so he dismantled the shelf and smashed the mirror, then stuck the shards onto the shelf to peer out and observe the situation outside. Seeing that the enemy's attention was focused ahead, Mark quickly dashed to the staircase and began to create a diversion.
I saw him! I saw Ben Richards! He's heading downstairs!
Taking advantage of this, Mark quickly ran up to the roof. Seeing that the enemies had already surrounded the area, Mark realized he had to get Jean Kai out of there, so he had no choice but to return to his hotel room to grab his bag. He threw the cable down and climbed down the wall, but when he reached the room, he found he couldn't open the window from the outside, so he wrapped a towel around his hand and smashed it against the window with all his might. But the sound of shattering glass alerted the enemies. Mark rushed back into the room, got dressed, and gathered all his supplies. The moment the enemies broke down the door, Mark leaped out the window. This move earned him applause from the enemy leader, who had no idea he'd underestimated Mark's abilities. Mark used a rope to reach another room, but his every move was being broadcast live by a drone. It turned out Mark was participating in a real-life survival game. If he could survive for 30 days, he would win a prize of $1 billion to pay for his terminally ill daughter's treatment. Mark had no choice but to risk everything. Watching the drone relentlessly chase him, Mark could no longer bear it.
Stop filming me!
As the leader of the hunters slowly approached, Mark had no choice but to throw a grenade. Little did he know it was a time-delay grenade. As the explosion rang out, Mark fled to the basement. He had intended to light the basement by setting fire to some magazines, but unexpectedly, it sparked a massive blaze. Just as the enemies were about to break down the door, Mark suddenly noticed a group of rats scurrying into the sewer, so he quickly opened the manhole cover. Before leaving, he kindly warned the rats.
Get out of here! This place is about to blow!
Yet it was precisely this act that saved Mark from a deadly pursuit. He then began recording the daily video he had to submit.
I'm still here, you shit-eaters.
After Mark escaped through the sewer, he encountered a young boy by the roadside. To his surprise, the boy turned out to be his devoted fan and took him straight home. The boy's older brother was also a fan. He'd been studying this reality manhunt show recently. After analyzing it, he realized the game was a dead end because no one could survive for 30 days. For the bounty, they'd report the fugitives' locations. If the target's ratings were high, the production team would intentionally let them go until they were no longer valuable, then go after them. Precisely because Mark had evaded the manhunt, the show's ratings had skyrocketed again, so the production team decided to ramp up the difficulty to be on the safe side. The brothers moved Mark to another city. By this point, 10 days had passed since he went on the run. In this city, Mark pretended to be blind. Every day, he hid and submitted his video tasks, but soon, he was spotted by a sanitation worker. Once his location was reported by the sanitation worker, the hunters quickly came after him. Mark had no choice but to run for his life. He finally jumped onto a moving train and narrowly escaped death. The last contestant, however, wasn't so lucky. He was recognized by someone in Las Vegas and was ultimately burned alive by the hunters. Now, Mark is the sole survivor of the show. Mark must get away from crowded areas as quickly as possible, so he had no choice but to hide at a friend's house. Stir said the production team is now using high-tech tracking devices, and his only chance of survival is to go underground. That's the only way to evade the manhunt. Stir said his father had discovered a World War II-era bunker. If Mark could hide inside, he could survive for several weeks. Plus, Stir could help him send out daily videos, but Mark would need to record them in advance. Just as Mark let out a sigh of relief, Stir's mentally ill mother recognized him. Without hesitation, she pressed the alarm button. In less than 2 minutes, an armed squad had surrounded the place.